It was 2:14 a.m. when the outer loading dock door slammed open by itself. Even though I was the only one scheduled for the night. But honestly, the night had felt wrong from the moment I scanned my badge at the security desk. I worked nights at Harbor Point Logistics, a massive facility stretching almost 4 acres. From the outside, the building looked like a giant hollow brick, featureless, pale, humming with the cold air from the refrigeration units. Inside, it was worse. The tall aisles were so narrow and so long that whenever you turned your head, it felt like something far down the row had just ducked out of sight. For months, I told myself the strange noises were forklifts cooling down, metal racks expanding, or refrigerant lines shifting. All excuses, all lies. Because on the night everything happened, I realized those sounds were too intentional, too measured, too alive. At exactly 1:03 a.m., a worker named Callum March badged out after a double shift. Everyone liked him, quiet but not unfriendly, always tired but never complaining. He had a sluggish gait, dragging his boots like they were weighted. I remember watching him leave from the control room window, his reflective jacket catching the yellow security lights. He waved, pushed the heavy door open, and disappeared into the early morning cold. Normal night, normal exit, but at 1:49 a.m., the front door chimed again. The same dragging. Boots echoed down the hall, slow, scraping.
Hello.
Measured. I looked up automatically, expecting maybe someone forgot something in a locker. And there he was, walking toward the exit again. Callum. Same jacket. Same backpack. Same coffee stain on his sleeve. I opened my mouth to say, forget something. But he didn't look at me. Didn't blink. Didn't acknowledge my presence at all. He just pushed through the door and walked out exactly the way he had 46 minutes earlier. The hair on my neck rose so fast I felt the chill spread. I checked the badge logs. Nothing. No door use. I pulled up the exterior camera from a few minutes earlier. The footage showed door swings open, cold air rushes in, papers flutter, light flickers, door closes, but no person, no shape, no shadow, no distortion, just a door opening by itself. I leaned forward, staring at the screen, refusing to believe what I was seeing. Maybe the camera glitched. Maybe the system froze. But then the second loading dock door slammed hard enough to shake dust from the rafters. My chair rolled back from instinctive fear.
Hello.
The loading docks were on the opposite side of the building. If someone came back inside, they would have needed a badge, and the system would have logged it. But the logs were empty, dead silent. Like no one had touched any entry point since Callum's original exit. I grabbed my flashlight. It was a terrible idea, but the kind your brain makes for you when it's not ready to accept fear. The hallway toward the docks felt colder than usual. Not the refrigerated kind of cold. This was cold, like the warmth was being drained out of the walls themselves. As I approached dock door number 12, my flashlight flickered. Footsteps echoed behind me. Slow, dragging, familiar. I turned my entire body, not just my head. Because something deep in me knew turning. Only your head was an invitation to see something you weren't ready for. No one, but the footsteps continued. They moved right past me. The air brushed my arm like a person squeezing through a narrow space. I stumbled back, hitting a pallet of shrink-wrapped boxes. My radio crackled. A voice whispered through the static. Low, tired, hoarse, familiar. Stop following me. It was Callum's voice.
Hello.
I froze, completely. My flashlight flickered and stabilized. The air felt thick, like humidity with no moisture. Then, the motion detector above me blinked on. The digital readout, height 6-1 movement, present location, right in front of Wyoming. Heart punched the inside of my ribs, slowly like my body was moving on its own. I lifted the flashlight and shined it down the aisle between pallets. Nothing. But the detector still read. Motion. Still read height. Still read presence. I backed away, walking blind. Flashlight trembling. When I reached the corner that opened toward the main floor, every overhead security monitor flickered on at once. 30 monitors, all showing different aisles, different corners, different angles, and in every single one, stood a man in a Gray Parka, facing the camera, not moving, not breathing, not blinking. 30 versions of him. Except the hood was pulled too low, and the face underneath was wrong. Not features, more like suggestions of features. Eyes slightly misaligned, mouth too wide, pulled into a shape I don't think a human mouth can make.
Hello.
I tried to run, but my legs felt unstable, rubbery, unresponsive. Then the intercom above the loading bay popped. Stop watching me. Same voice, same tone. Something moved behind me. Close enough that I felt the air shift. Close enough that I heard skin stretch when it moved. Close enough that my shadow was no longer alone. I bolted, ran down the hall, past the vending machines, through the cold walkway, up the stairs, back to the control room. I slammed the door behind me, locking it, even though the lock felt pointless. The monitors showed nothing now. All empty aisles, all still, like nothing had happened. At 5:52 a.m., the day shift arrived. I didn't wait for them. I left my badge on the panel and walked out into the dawn air without looking back. 3 days later, a supervisor called. Callum never made it home after his shift. No GPS ping, no card use, no phone activity. They asked what I saw. I lied, told them nothing happened, told them he left at 1:03 a.m. and everything was normal. But sometimes, late at night, when my apartment is dark and my eyes are half closed, I hear dragging footsteps outside my door, slow, scraping, measured. Just like his. It was 3:38 a.m. when the gas station went completely silent. Not the usual quiet. There was no hum from the refrigeration units, no distant trucks rolling down Highway 29, not even the low buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. Just a vacuum of sound that pressed against my eardrums and made the hairs on my arms stand straight. I worked nights at Mason's 24-hour stop, a lonely place where most customers were either semi-conscious truckers or locals who didn't want to be recognized. Normally, the stillness was comforting, like a lullaby for the eyes, but that night, it felt wrong. It felt alive. Watching me, I had been stocking shelves, doing my rounds. A routine I knew by heart, but the moment the silence hit, I realized my hands were trembling. Not from cold, not from caffeine withdrawal, from fear, pure, unreasoning fear. Then the front door chimed. It slid open, but no wind blew inside. No one entered. Cold air wafted in, carrying a scent that was vaguely metallic like copper and ozone, but sharper. My stomach nodded instantly. Something had crossed the threshold, something unseen. I checked the camera feed. A figure appeared at the doorway, tall, thin, wrong. It moved like a smear of static on an old TV screen. Its head swayed, torso twisting unnaturally, limbs stretched at impossible angles. I blinked and it was gone. Not walked away, vanished, like the space it had occupied had never existed. Then the lights went out. Suddenly, no flicker, no warning, nothing. The whole store plunged into pitch black, my flashlight trembling in my hands. The hum of electricity died with it. My ears rang. My pulse slammed against my ribs. When the lights came back slowly, unevenly, there was a VHS tape sitting on the counter. It hadn't been there a moment ago. The label was handwritten in thick black marker. 4 o'clock to 5 a.m. footage. I froze. The clock read 3:42 a.m. I hadn't yet lived this hour, yet somehow, someone or something had recorded it. Against my better judgment, I inserted the tape into the old player behind the counter. The second it played, all sound in the store vanished again. Even my breathing seemed muted. Even the fluorescent lights appeared dimmer, stretched out, lagging behind reality. The tape showed the interior of the store, everything familiarized, shelves, refrigerators, but wrong. The colors were slightly off, the walls longer than they should have been, the shadows falling at angles that defied logic. And behind the counter sat me, not me, exactly. Something that looked like me, same uniform, same posture, but the face, stiff. The eyes too wide, the mouth unnaturally tight, like a mannequin that had been taught to breathe. At 4:07 on the tape, the duplicate lifted its head. In real life, I could feel my own head jerk back, frozen in place. At 4:09, Take Me stood and walked toward the door. The real door sensor chimed. No breeze, no footsteps. Just the chime. At 4:12, Take Me turned toward the camera. Slow, deliberate. Its smile stretched to wide, its eyes too sharp. It whispered something I didn't understand at first, a soft rasping that made my skin crawl. You do not belong in this hour. Static cracked across the screen. The overhead camera flickered violently. And then, in the top left corner, I saw my own reflection, standing behind me. Mirroring Take Me's movements, exactly. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but my body refused. It was like the air itself was glue, holding me in place while the duplicate rehearsed my life on loop. Seconds ahead of reality, the tape ejected with a loud thump. The lights returned fully. The hum of refrigerators restarted. The world was normal again. But the VHS was gone. And I had a sick, twisting feeling in my stomach that maybe it had never been real. Or maybe I had never been real. Since that night, I've seen glimpses. A flash in the freezer reflection. A figure standing in aisle 3 when no one was there. A whisper behind the counter, soft enough to be imagined. But the hairs on my neck don't lie. Sometimes, around 4 a.m., when the highway is empty and the night stretches too thin, I see myself on the monitor, standing in the aisles. It was 1:56 a.m. when the TV cart in the abandoned media room powered on by itself. I had been mopping the science wing of Brimwood High, a school built in the 1960s with narrow hallways, creaking lockers, and an almost permanent smell of dust mixed with mildew. Nighttime amplified everything. The soft thud of my mop echoed down empty halls. My footsteps seemed unnaturally loud, and shadows pooled in corners. Thick and waiting, the TV crackled, static filling the silence. I froze, mop in midair, staring at the screen. Then, the image gradually formed. A woman was sitting at a desk in a classroom I didn't recognize. The walls were faded, peeling. The desks were lined in perfect order. She wasn't moving, or maybe she wasn't alive, but her head turned toward the door slowly, deliberately, as if something unseen was outside waiting to enter. In the corner of the screen, a logo appeared. Channel 9 had ceased broadcasting years ago. It shouldn't exist. The woman whispered, barely audible, but somehow clear, "Don't let it in." A knock sounded on her classroom door. 3 sharp knocks. I stiffened, and at that exact moment, a knock came from the hallway behind me. 3 identical knocks. I froze, sweat pooling along my spine. The woman's head jerked violently toward the camera. Her eyes were wide, terrified. Her lips formed words I couldn't hear, and yet the panic was palpable. "Please, do not open it." The classroom lights behind her flickered. Shadows stretched across the walls like tendrils, pulling on the floor. The door handle began to twist slowly, deliberately. I felt my own heartbeat in my throat. The temperature in the hallway dropped sharply, my breath fogging. All the TV carts down the hallway had started to roll forward on their own. Each screen flickered to life. Each one showed the same woman, staring directly at me, pleading silently. I backed into a locker, trembling. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But my feet felt cemented to the linoleum floor. The door handle twisted again, harder this time. Something outside was testing it, pushing, waiting. I mustered the courage to step toward the door, but as I did, the largest screen on the far end of the hallway flickered violently.
Hello.
The woman's face filled the frame. Her eyes were blacker than any shadow I had ever seen. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. I stumbled backward. My mop hit the floor with a loud clatter. The sound seemed deafening in the heavy silence that had returned. I tried to leave, but the hallway seemed to stretch, elongate, twist unnaturally. Every step felt like I was moving through molasses, though my eyes told me the walls and lockers were farther away than before. I glanced back at the screens. The woman was closer now, standing at the door I had just passed. Her hand reached out. Not toward me, but toward something behind me. A noise behind my shoulder. A whisper. Soft, cold, urgent. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around. Empty hallway. My own reflection in a locker stared back at me. Pale, wide-eyed, silent, I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the parking lot. I collapsed on the asphalt, breathing hard, sweat freezing on my skin in the cold night air. I never went back inside. The custodial logs for that night are blank. The cameras, they show only empty hallways, but the TVs.
Hello.
Late at night,
Is
when I'm
anyone
home,
there?
my television flickers for a split
can see
second. Channel 9. Static first, then the dim figure of the woman. Her hand reaching toward the camera, as if she's coming closer. Every time I blink, she seems closer than before.